what the Church of Scientology is so afraid of.
This is SPTV.
Hello and welcome to another edition of the Scientology Money Project on YouTube with your host, Jeffrey Augustine. I have a question from you from Dr. L. Ron Hubbard. Have you ever found yourself lying in the rain with a rat below your crotch? Wait, let me ask again because you may not have understood Dr. Hubbard's question. Have you ever found yourself lying in the rain with a rat below your crotch? That's what L. Ron Hubbard wants to know. In this episode, we're going to cover some strange things L. Ron Hubbard said, and he said a lot of strange things, and I'll explain what it's about. The reason I'm doing this episode is I was watching Aaron Smith Levin and some of his second gen friends last night, and that would have been August 7, 2023. And these second gen youngsters were discussing the subject of bodies in pawn. That's a phrase L. Ron Hubbard used, and they didn't know what it meant. That's why you need old guard like me to help understand some of the more early 50s obscure things. And they don't get discussed so much anymore. The early 1950s, L. Ron Hubbard esoterica. But I can assure you that in the early 1950s works of L. Ron Hubbard, things like body thetans were there. They just weren't fully conceptualized back then. But L. Ron Hubbard did a lot more. He was a lot closer to his roots in black magic from the 40s. So he was a lot more esoteric in the early 1950s. Then he went through a period where he sort of normalized into Scientology 54 on, and he doesn't return to the esoteric until 1967. So that's why the early 1950s, L. Ron Hubbard has some really wild stuff. And Bodies in Pawn, we're going to cover right now. So let me add this. Now, this is from the Research and Discovery series. It's a set of blue volumes. It's not well known. And Karen and I have a copy. So this is what L. Ron Hubbard, Bodies in Pawn, results from a very gruesome experience. And I'm going to quote L. Ron Hubbard. If you have a hard time following, it's because it's hard to follow. Okay, so here's L. Ron Hubbard, quote, "A fellow is grabbed, hypnotized, shoved into an electronic field, and then told he is somewhere else. And so he departs, most of him, and goes to the new location while still being under control of the implanters. He picks up a messed body in the new location and starts living a life there while still having a living body somewhere else. The implanters can keep his original body alive indefinitely and control the Thetan through it. If the Thetan tries to flee, the hypnotizer simply causes pain to the original body, still alive in a vat of fluid, and he is immediately recalled. That's a body in pawn. It's a second body you may have living somewhere else right in the present time, but the second body is not under your direct control, unquote. So basically, what it means is you have an original body. The implanters and hypnotizers put it in a vat of fluid, hypnotize you until you're somewhere else. So you leave and go get a new messed body. Now, for new Scientology watchers, MEST, M-E-S-T, is a Scientology term Hubbard created, means matter, energy, space, time. And so Hubbard referred to the physical universe as the MEST universe. And so your physical body is your MEST body. So once your original MEST body gets zapped and implanted by the psychs, you move on as a Thetan, as a spirit, and you get another MEST body, not realizing that your original body, body number one, is in a vat of fluid being kept alive indefinitely by the implanters for nefarious reasons. So if you try to flee in your second body, the implanters simply cause pain to your first body, which somehow telepathically causes pain to your second body. And that's because that means your second body is a body in pawn to the first body controlled by the psychs. If this seems confusing, welcome to the world of Scientology, because sometimes it's as confusing as is all get out. And that's why you got to be all in. That's why Tom Cruise said, KSW, that's it. You either know it or you don't. So, bro, you either know it or you don't. It either makes sense to you or it doesn't. So, to Scientologists, bodies and pawn, and here's my take on it. L. Ron Hubbard was not just merely being strange or sci fi. Scientology is a business, it's about money. So, one reason Hubbard would say strange things is because they needed to be audited, and you have to pay for the auditing. So, if you have a pain somewhere, like, oh, my shoulder hurts, you might have to be audited on, well, is there a body in pawn somewhere? Is it being controlled remotely? Is the pain in your shoulder or the pain in your sinuses or the pain anywhere being caused because you are a body in pawn? If so, Scientology will have to help cut all the beams, lines into your new second body. They'll have to cut that line. Now, bodies in pawn prefigures the OT levels in many ways. And in fact, in the early 1950s, Hubbard said a lot of very esoteric stuff because he was still very close to Goetia or black magic, his 1940s black magic work. And an interesting thing is Zelator uh, of the Golden Dawn of Thelema made a comment on one of my blogs, and I'm hoping to hook up with this Zelator and maybe do a very esoteric discussion. So Zelador hit me up. We'd love to talk about Black Magic, Goetia, and L. Ron Hubbard because there's a lot more than people realize. And so we'll leave it at that. But the main thing Hubbard talked about bodies and pawn is he could monetize it. That's really what the whole thing is. Scientology is a business. So he has to talk about a lot of strange phenomena like bodies and pawn in order to monetize it. And if you understand that, then a lot of the apparently strange things he said, you go, oh, he creates problems for which he alone has the solution. That's it. If you understand that part of Scientology, you'll go, oh, that accounts for it. So let's go back to our slide deck. And I want to add this to the stream. We're going to move on. Another strange thing, this is L. Ron Hubbard writing and the R3 ARC break process. It's from the Hubbard Communications Office Bulletin of 22 September 65. And I read, quote, there are certain things which make people ill, and that is when they get into certain zones and areas or positions which approximate the R6 position, such as a body lying in the rain with a rat below the crotch, guaranteed to give people colds and so forth. So they had colds from rain, yet they take baths and get wet and don't get colds. When they get cold, it restimulates frozen alcohol and glycol as a mix. And therefore, they get into a dramatization so that sickness is very closely tied in with R6, unquote. Let me help you break this down and unpack it. It's, first of all, again, for new Scientology watchers, R6 is Hubbard's term for religions other than Scientology. L. Ron Hubbard considered all religions except for Scientology to be R6 implants. Christianity is an R6 implant. L. Ron Hubbard said there was no man on the cross. R6 is just implanted things that were put in you during incident 2 of OT3, where you were captured, zapped, frozen, blown up in a volcano, and then implanted for 36 days. So if we go back to this, let's go back to this slide, and we are going to look at it again. Now, there are certain things which make people ill, Hubbard says, and that is when they get into certain zones or areas or positions which approximate the R6 position, such as a body lying in the rain with a rat below the crotch. Now, I have no idea what the hell Hubbard is talking about, no idea whatsoever, uh, because I have never been in the rain with a rat below my crotch. Let me repeat that. I have never been lying in the rain with a rat below my crotch. That's never happened to me. I personally think Hubbard's talking about his lifetime experiences. He was probably in the Navy, just shit faced, drunk, passed out, and he woke up somewhere in Bremerton in the rain with a rat below his crotch. Bremerton is a Navy town in Washington. but he could have woken up somewhere else. But I'm just saying, like, who wakes up in the rain with a rat below their crotch? You've got to be pretty plowed, drunk, laying in the rain. Maybe you got thrown out of a bar. I think that comes from L. Ron Hubbard's experience. The other weird thing about another weird thing about this, let's continue. Hubbard says, quote, that guaranteed to give people colds and so forth. So they had, now I want you to follow this logic. So let's get back into the quote. Quote, so they had colds from rain, yet they take baths and get wet and don't get colds. Now that's so weird. So Hubbard's saying if you go out in the rain, you can get a cold, but when you take a bath, you're still wet, but you don't get a cold. That's non sequitur for a lot of reasons, because being out in the cold, freezing rain, maybe you're run down, your immune system is quite different from taking a hot bath in your home. Nevertheless, so Hubbard continues, quote, when they get cold, it stimulates frozen alcohol and glycol as a mix. And what you were frozen in during the incident 2 when Xenu zapped you and nuked you, you were frozen in a mixture of glycol and alcohol. So you can see here in 1965, L. Ron Hubbard was already conceptualizing the OT levels before they were released in 1967. So he goes on, quote, and therefore they get into a dramatization so that sickness is very closely tied in with R6. Again, what Hubbard is saying is that if you get around certain things, it stimulates incident 2 of OT3. So getting wet in the rain can somehow re-stimulate Xenu zapping you, implanting you, freezing you in an ice cube. And I got a kick when Erin was talking to Reese, and Reese's dad told her that she came here frozen in an ice cube. Because if you remember, Xenu froze everyone in a glycol alcohol mix, transported them here on DC-8 space planes, which I do a video on showing that the space planes would have had to have traveled faster than the speed of light. So, Reese, to answer your question, what your dad was telling you is on the OT3 levels. Xenu froze people in a mixture of glycol and alcohol, and Hubbard said which preparation is guaranteed to trap a thetan. Actually, he said guaranteed to pick up a thetan, but freeze you, trap you. So in Hubbard's world, you did come here in ice cubes. Look at that, I have an ice cube here. However, the ice cubes Hubbard Xenu transported you here in were made of glycol and alcohol. These ice cubes are just made of H2O, common water. So they're no danger to me. I'm not going to get into an R6 position with a rat below my crotch because I'm drinking this product. So that's another strange thing L. Ron Hubbard said. We're going to go back to our slides here. Now, this you can pause and read. I'm not going to read the whole thing. Basically, L. Ron Hubbard claimed that he wrote a book called Excalibur following an epiphany he had in 1938. During 1938, L. Ron Hubbard was having surgery under dental gas. And he said that he died for 8 minutes. And during that time, he was transported to the esoteric heavenly realms, and he saw all knowledge, all human history spread out before him, all knowledge spread out before him. And he came back to life. Now, the 8 minutes doesn't make sense because you'd be permanently brain damaged if you died and you were brain dead, or I'm sorry, if you didn't have oxygen to your brain for 8 minutes. That doesn't make sense. But in Scientology, you don't need real science. You just need belief and faith that you could be deprived of oxygen for 8 minutes with no brain damage. But conversely, maybe that 8 minutes did brain damage him. I don't know. I'm not a doctor. I'm just speculating in the abstract. So L. Ron Hubbard said that he formulated all of this into a book called Excalibur. And so his 1938 dental gas epiphany, in which he saw the truth of the entire universe, which I guess included Xenu freezing people in glycol alcohol ice cubes. Um, and he said that he wrote it up in a book, and the book was so dangerous that when a New York literary agent saw it in a high rise, he opened it and he got so freaked out by this secret knowledge that he opened the window, climbed out of the ledge, and threw himself to his death. True to L. Ron Hubbard. Um, he doesn't mention the name of the literary agent who died. A search of the newspapers of that period would reveal no literary agent who threw himself to his death, and the police investigation revealed that he had read secret, hidden, esoteric knowledge from the pen of L. Ron Hubbard, and this caused him to die. But in the larger tradition of Western esotericism and even Eastern, there is a tradition of if you read secret knowledge before you're prepared for it, you could kill yourself. You could become suicidal because it's so powerful, you're not ready for it. That's the idea behind initiation by degree, that you are gradually initiated into these esoteric realms of knowledge. But my answer to that is even if you read something that's very esoteric and high level, it wouldn't mean anything to you. You wouldn't kill yourself. Hubbard tried to use this superstition that if you read something, it could kill you. Hubbard tried to say that if you read the OT levels without preparation, of course, he infamously said it would cause you to freewheel through your implants, get pneumonia, not sleep, and you would die. So this is sort of an old world esoteric curse that you can't read it without preparation. Translated, because Scientology is a business, Hubbard said, you have to pay me money to go up to your bridge through each step of the grades, through clear to the OT levels, to OT3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, before, you have to pay him. So again, just like the rat below the crotch, bodies and pawns, stuff you had to get audited on, Hubbard's logic was to put out all this space opera so that you would pay him because you might think that's your problem. And so he claimed that Excalibur was so powerful that it could kill, and that he claimed he'd been offered millions of dollars for it. Supposedly Excalibur exists. I don't know. I've read purported copies. The church has never published it. So we consider, that story one. L. Ron Hubbard's literary agent, Forrest Ackerman, is the source of that story. So for the people at Cheshire, like Massimo Introvigne or Ian Camacho, Forrest Ackerman talks about it on YouTube, but I'm going to do a video about the world's first clear with first person eyewitness testimony because Ian Camacho is an idiot. I think that's my opinion, Ian. And again, Massimo Introvigne, Cheshire, anytime you want to debate me online, on Skype, the invitation is there, and I wish you would accept my invitation, but you don't want to because I think you're an intellectually bankrupt, sellout Italian sociologist, lawyer, and you are on Scientology's payroll. That's what I'm saying. And if you want to come online and have a debate, I would love to debate you because I think you're just an intellectual bankrupt, on the take, paid cult religious apologist. And yes, sir, I am insulting you. I'm throwing down the gauntlet saying, let's do it, Massimo. Let's do it. But you don't want to. You want to hide. That's 8.0, below 8.0 on the tone scale. So I digress from my um, uh, discussion with Mr. Introvigne. Uh, he can do whatever he wants, but Cheshire is really a lot of garbage. It's paid. And I'm hoping someone in Italy will leak some documents to me. I'm working on that. It could be interesting. It could blow the lid off Cheshire. Wow, wouldn't that be something? Yes, it would. So let's go back. So anyway, if you read secret esoteric knowledge without preparation, meaning if you don't pay L. Ron Hubbard first, you will throw yourself out of a building and die. get pneumonia and die, or something dire will happen to you. Now, this next thing that's really comical, this was done by David Miscavige's late speechwriter, Danny Sherman, who passed away during the pandemic, it appears. And this is a letter from June 30, 1941. It's on Church of Scientology's website. And Senator Pat McCarran, basically, L. Ron Hubbard wrote Senator McCarran a letter saying, I have a plan for a Department of Aviation and a United States Air Force. Well, that was already in the works. So Danny Sherman ridiculously claimed that L. Ron Hubbard, that this letter was responsible for the creation of the United States Air Force. So therefore, L. Ron Hubbard created the United States Air Force. Now that's just purely stupid. The United States Army Air Force began with biplanes in World War One. The Signal Corps actually added an aeronautical division, and then it became the U.S. Army Air Corps. It was called the U.S. Army Air Forces, and this was all already in the works before L. Ron Hubbard showed up. Danny Sherman also claimed that L. Ron Hubbard invented the Loran navigation system, which was a pre-GPS radio navigation system. L. Ron Hubbard didn't. So L. Ron Hubbard said a lot of ridiculous stuff, laying in the rain with a rat below your crotch. So if you ever find yourself lying in the rain with a rat below your crotch, you might be a body in pawn. The implanters might be making you lay in the rain with a rat below your crotch. So again, uh, when I was writing at xenu.net, 2005 to 2010, I used to post Scientology high strangeness alerts. This is when I would see Scientology go into periods of high strangeness, and I knew there was going to be fair game and attacks, and they were just going to go kamikaze. And some of that's happening now, but it's not working, Osa. It's just not working because you're all failures. Your fair game's not working. And I may be issuing additional new high strangeness alerts. So there is a lot of high strangeness in Scientology. That's why I used to issue high strangeness alerts. And Scientology is awash in surreality. Some of it was done for effect. Some of it was done for monetization. Some of it was done for fair game. So there's all kinds of reasons L. Ron Hubbard said crazy stuff. He was a madman. He was just a madman. And I wanted to share, let's give you a little taste. But I did want to answer the question of the second gens, what bodies in pawn are. And now you know that if you have something going on with your mess body right now, your meat body, as L. Ron Hubbard called it, um, there might be your real original body in a vat of liquid somewhere controlled by the implanters and hypnotizers. And if that's the case, the only cure is Scientology. And that costs a lot of money. And the better solution is just to go, I don't believe it. That's just kind of more Scientology, space opera, and just be done with it. Because really, unless you're all in like Tom Cruise, like KSW, I'm in. You're either in or out. And if you don't know it, then learn it. So Tom's that intense, you know. Um, anyway, that's one of the things I want to do. So I think I'm going to start doing a thing about strange things L. Ron Hubbard said. If you have any ideas, email me. You can always contact me on my blog at the Scientologymoneyproject.com. I'm covering some other stuff. So stay tuned for more strange things L. Ron Hubbard said. And as I promised a while back, I'm going to be finishing this week my episode on why L. Ron Hubbard had to create Xenu and the body thetans. Because, like I said, I reverse engineered him, and I'm going to do about an hour video on that. I've got all the slide deck prepared. It's so interesting to see putting all the pieces together because I love reverse engineering stuff. I love taking stuff apart, seeing how it works, figuring it out. That's just part of the game. That's just part of the fun. So, in conclusion, I'll repeat, oh, so you are failing, you suck, and you suck badly, and you're not doing a good job. I hope all of you get sent to the RPF and for rehabilitation because you are badly in need of rehabilitation. But better yet, I hope you all blow. You just escape. Just leave. Just leave. Stop creating so much misery and hell because that karma is all on you. It's all on you, and it's not going to be good. Because Osa, you know that L. Ron Hubbard told you that when you drop the body, you're going to be sent to Martian implanting stations. And all those evil, pernicious people in Osa, they're going to be the first in line at the Martian implanting stations. With that, hope you've enjoyed this episode. Please like, subscribe. I'm never going to get anywhere close to Aaron Smith Levin's ratings, 171,000, but I can always postulate. Thanks for watching.